Unmute
Hello?
and start.
Hello?
Hi, Jay. Do you want to start?
You need to unmute, Jay. Sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining today's event with as part of U.S. India Business Council. We are excited to have a conversation today on the issue of fifth generation technology. We have a great lineup. And I just want to note that today's conversation is part of a larger conversation as part of our West Coast Digital Week, where we've been promoting a U.S.-India strategic digital partnership. We've had really wonderful topical conversations on AI and agriculture, energy and ICT, on quantum technology, and of course today we're very excited to talk about 5G and how the United States and India can work together on that. We have a great lineup. We'd like to start our conversation today with Lieutenant General Kochar, who's obviously a well-known entity here today. General, why don't you start and welcome our guests, sir?
Thank you. Thank you, Jay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start with an apology that Mr. Ramchand will not be able to join us due to some official commitments. And there's a technical problem to get Mr. Undersecretary Kolbo on the line, and he will be joining us. And as soon as he joins, we will request him to give his remarks. Till then, you'll have to bear with me, and I shall be speaking about today's session. It is indeed a pleasure that we have gone into the second such conversation today, and we are talking about a very topical subject, as Jay said, about 5G. I would like to say that in the last few years, the bond between India and US has gone stronger. And the current geopolitical situation is making it even stronger further. This close ties between the US and India has provided a stimulus to early adoption of 5G in India and building an ecosystem for the same. As a result, today both countries are deeply committed to harnessing the power of communication technology. On a broader level, India, Israel, and United States have begun collaboration in developmental area and in next generation of emerging technologies, including a transparent, open, reliable, and secure 5G communication network. 5G, as you all know, is now a reality, and it is very important for us in India to see that it gets rolled out and commercialized at an early date as per the 3GPP compliant 5G services. Hence, this Indo-US collaboration becomes critical, considering that many countries are keen to invest in 5G and are moving together for early adoption of 5G technology, including India. As per a recent study by the GSA dated September 2020, there are 397 operators in 129 countries investing in 5G mobile and 5G FWA networks. This is in the form of tests, trials, pilot deployments, and commercial launches. The Indian companies, on their part, are now reimagining the future workforce and workplace powered by technology. Hence, there exists an opportunity to accelerate the pace of digital transformation through automation, robotics, cloud, and cognitive computing. Indo-US collaboration, as you all know, is already strong, and we need to build upon it further. India is looking forward to introducing 5G not only in cellular networks, but there are immense other possibilities too. In a 5G scenario, artificial intelligence, IoT, M2M, AR, and VR will all come together to create a strong and robust digitally connected society. We in India believe that 5G is a telecom by itself, and more so in 5G era, it will become a foundational sector. It will no longer be a vertical. we are going around trying to convince people that without telecommunication and other industries are not going to flourish in the manner that we want them to. And therefore, technically, telecom should be seen as a foundational sector on which will ride all other sectors. And hence, it is good for the economy. Having said that, we are drawing out a corollary and saying that telecom should be considered as an essential service, much like water and electricity, which will have an effect on the way government looks at this sector. And we are going around saying that unfortunately there has been a fire incident here, so you won't be able to see me, but you can hear me. So the government has to see us in a different light. And we are saying that the levies and taxes should be as per essential services. So therefore, there is a huge amount of opportunity in this collaboration. And we will be seeing a lot of this happening in IMC 2020, happening in the beginning part of December this year. And going into next year also, we will see this collaboration continuing. Some statistics which might excite you for today's discussions, that 5G will generate worldwide $3.3 trillion by 2035 direct, and $9 trillion by social value. Out of this, $1 trillion is likely to be generated in India itself. Worldwide, 5 billion people are on mobiles, and an annual growth rate of 70% in the mobile traffic is predicted. In India itself, we expect 70 million 5G connections by 2025. And for those who are inclined towards financial figures, the capex required for a 5G network rollout pan-India is expected to be around 1.3 lakh crores to 2.3 lakh crores, which is a huge amount of money. Collaboration in 5G, I would never say, is just the tip of the iceberg and a first step. In its wake will follow skill development, innovation, entrepreneurship, water and renewable energy cooperation, and many other areas where India and US are expected to work together in the near future for common good. Thus, needless to say, these are exciting times, and there are opportunities galore. We have to just sit and observe and grab those opportunities and make the best use of the emerging scenario. With that, I wish you great discussions and outcomes today and hope to see you in the next session again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair, for your opening remark. I believe Undersecretary Kalba is online, Jay. I just saw a note.
I believe he's on as well. May we ask the operator to pull Greg Kalba forward so that he can speak?
Hi, this is Greg. Can you hear me?
Wonderful, sir. Thank you so much for joining. We appreciate the technical difficulties and are glad that you are here. Please go ahead. We'd love to hear some opening remarks from you as well about the United States government, 5G, the role of India, followed by the panel discussion led by Mahir Parekh. With that, sir, the microphone is yours.
Great. Well, thank you. And again, sincerest apologies for the challenges in logging on. We are not as up to speed as you all are in the private sector when it comes to technology. So sincerest apologies for that. But thanks for having me here today and inviting me to this great discussion. And thank you to Member Ramchand and our moderator, Mr. Parekh, and our speakers for the following panel and the audience that joined us today. Everyone participating in today's discussion understands the importance of the evolution taking place in the wireless technology sector to the fifth generation of wireless connectivity, 5G. During the transition to 5G, cooperation between the United States and India will not only be critical to realize the economic potential enabled by 5G capabilities, but also to ensure that our communications networks are open, interoperable, and secure. So when we talk about developing technology for secure, trusted, and interoperable 5G networks, I see India as a strong partner to the United States. I appreciate the opportunity to speak at the event and promote increased collaboration between our governments, our companies, our innovators across the entire technology ecosystem. So if you look at it, as the last speaker mentioned, over the last 5 years, more than $1.1 trillion will be spent to upgrade and modernize the global communications networks. Around 78% of this spending will be dedicated to deploying and enabling 5G wireless systems. So the capabilities of 5G will open new opportunities in all segments of the global economy and will be the foundation for new and exciting applications and next-generation services. Mobile wireless technology is projected to contribute $4.6 trillion to the global economy by 2022. And thanks to the new capabilities of 5G, the global economy is going to generate increased revenues, and vertical industries will realize new efficiencies through new use cases and applications. New applications enabled by 5G will have an impact across all consumer and industrial segments, including smart city solutions, industrial, Internet of Things, intelligent transportation systems, advanced manufacturing, healthcare, many others. So every industry is going to be impacted. And the network architecture for 5G will be more distributed and complex than previous generations, and they're going to require a wide range of technologies to achieve the full economic benefits of the 5G ecosystem. It's going to require the assurance of an advanced, secure, and reliable network infrastructure, an infrastructure that's developed, scaled, deployed, and serviced based on technology solutions from trusted vendors. U.S. technology companies already produce some of the most innovative and leading-edge solutions available in the world. Technologies to enable 5G connectivity and the applications and use cases that will operate on 5G networks. Some Indian mobile network operators and service providers are already adopting some of these innovative technologies, such as Open RAN systems and virtualization in new network build-outs and upgrades. And we're appreciative of that. And we're also aware that great technology solutions come from Indian innovators and entrepreneurs. And I see tremendous opportunities for increased collaboration between the U.S. and Indian companies as the world advances towards 5G and beyond to meet the explosive demand for wireless connectivity. By 2025, we're looking at more than 25 billion devices connected to wireless networks. By 2023 alone, there'll be over 170 exabytes of data moving over wireless networks each month. That's tremendous demand on the communications infrastructure. And companies in the U.S. and India are developing and scaling technologies to meet the demand now and for the future. Increased partnerships between the two countries can accelerate the development and commercialization of technology solutions from trusted vendors for 5G networks and the entire technology ecosystems. They can promote increased trade and commerce in ICT and digital services, and they're going to strengthen the U.S.-India economic relationship. And this relationship will be especially important as the world confronts the predatory trade and business practices by the government of China. Trade between the U.S. and India in ICT goods and services reached over $20 billion in 2019. So there's significant opportunity to generate even more growth in trade and business opportunities across the ICT sector. First, as both countries are signatories to the WTO ICT agreement, or Information Technology Agreement, the ITA agreement, we must ensure that ICT goods receive duty-free treatment as specified by our binding commitments under the agreement. The success of the WTO ITA has facilitated the exponential growth in trade of ICT goods. It's given consumers more affordable access to some of the world's most innovative technologies. It's helped expand access to broadband connectivity and to close the digital divide. So this landmark treaty has been a key driver in the globalization of technology and the wider digital ecosystem, bringing enormous benefits to people all over the world. Another effort that will further increase cooperation and business opportunities is ensuring the free flow of cross-border data between the U.S. and India. As RF spectrum is the lifeblood for wireless connectivity, data is the lifeblood for the global digital economy. As new commercial opportunities and business cases emerge thanks to the capabilities of 5G systems, it is critical that we avoid regulations restricting the flow of data or mandating data localization. Such policies stifle innovation, they impede the development and scaling of new innovative business models. Also, policies and requirements mandating localized production can become barriers to increased cooperation. Policies such as local content requirements, redundant domestic testing requirements that are inconsistent with international norms, forced technology transfer, and requirements to use government-mandated technology standards instead of voluntary industry-driven standards will significantly inhibit partnership opportunities. As the U.S. and India explore ways to grow our commercial relationship and expand collaboration in the 5G ecosystem, I hope we can quickly resolve any policy and regulatory concerns that would constrain potential opportunities. And something else I want to touch on is everyone in the U.S. government and the government of India, our India stakeholders, and those in our audience can appreciate the promise of 5G networks. They're going to deliver fast, ubiquitous, ultra-low latency connectivity that'll be the backbone for the next generation services. However, it's critical that those networks also be secure. Fifth-generation wireless networks and the broader global communications infrastructure must be deployed using technology solutions and services only from trusted vendors. 5G networks will be more disaggregated and create a broader security surface with increased vulnerabilities than previous generations. There will no longer be traditional models of core versus edge or an ability to demarcate critical versus non-critical parts of the network. And that's why we see the need to ensure that the entire network is only touched by technology and services from trusted vendors. Maintaining the sovereignty of the country's communications infrastructure and digital economy should be a paramount priority. Continuing to use equipment and devices from untrusted vendors such as Huawei and ZTE puts the network at extreme risk of being compromised by the Chinese government and associated threats. It also degrades the ability to ensure the security and integrity of proprietary economic data and the privacy of our citizens. As India, the United States, and many other countries have already experienced, utilizing technology from untrusted vendors that are subject to the control of the government of China is an unacceptable risk. China has used global communications networks to undertake aggressive economic espionage, to stifle free speech, to violate the privacy and personal data of our citizens, and disrupt the operations of other countries' networks. For these reasons, the Trump administration has taken action to secure the U.S. telecom networks. The administration issued an executive order on securing the information and communications technology and services supply chain. We issued a national strategy to secure 5G. We've strengthened the review of foreign direct investment into the U.S. technology sector. We've implemented other measures to remove untrusted technology from the U.S. telecommunications network. To have an open, secure, and interoperable global communications network, it's imperative that all of our trading partners and allies only use equipment, software, and services from trusted vendors. So I would encourage the government of India to review the risks to India's communications networks, to undertake appropriate measures to remove and exclude equipment from Huawei, from ZTE, and other untrusted vendors from India's 5G networks and the broader ICT infrastructure. So with the deployment of secure 5G networks in mind, the importance of collaboration and partnership between the U.S. and India is key. Securing the global communications infrastructure cannot just be about excluding untrusted vendors. We also must develop and promote technology alternatives that are produced by trusted vendors. The U.S. has over 200 companies that are developing and supplying technology solutions for the 5G ecosystem. These companies not only include well-established tech firms, but also startups, new entrants that are developing innovative, leading-edge technologies for 5G connectivity, including software-defined systems, artificial intelligence, increased network virtualization. Expanding cooperation can also be achieved in areas such as ensuring standards for development for 5G and other enabling technologies remain based on voluntary, industry-driven processes, undue from coordinated government influence, from collaborating in other areas of the 5G ecosystem, such as international harmonization around allocating 6 gigahertz spectrum for Wi-Fi 6 and other unlicensed technology. I see an increased partnership between the U.S. and India as an important means to accelerate technological development, to scale the growth of our technology startups and innovative companies, to diversify secure technology options for 5G networks, and to expand the trade and commercial relationship in 5G and the entire ICT ecosystem. So I look forward to hearing more from Member Ramchand and the panel discussion to follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Undersecretary Kalba, for joining us today and providing excellent opening remarks. I, of course, look forward to seeing you in the panel and your further comments on 5G. As General Co-Chair and Undersecretary Kalba mentioned, everybody is expecting 5G revolution. Everybody expecting that it's going to change the way we live and we work, because it's going to provide a huge bandwidth and the speed at which cellular network operates today. It's going to provide the backbone for what they call Industrial Revolution 4.0 technology, like artificial intelligence, drones, autonomous vehicles, augmented reality, virtual reality, even telemedicine. So, and we have seen that a lot of companies are coming out with 5G handsets, with billions of such handsets connected into network and hundreds of billions of IoT sensors connected into this network is going to provide us the capabilities and user experience that we have never seen before. So our life will be different 10 years from now. So with that in mind, what we have is a great list of panelists today. I will be discussing issues like, applications of 5G, 5G standards, 5G infrastructure issues, national security issue, network security issues, as well as how India and US can cooperate together or collaborate on different aspects of 5G. So without further delay, I would like to introduce the great experts, the panelists that we have today, Mr. Kishore Babu, who is Deputy Director General at the Department of Telecommunications in India. Mr. Greg Kalba, he is Under Secretary of Commerce at International Trade Administration in the US. Mr. Durga Maladi, he is a Senior Vice President and General Manager of 5G at Qualcomm. Mr. Badri Gomatam, he is a Group CTO at STL. And Mr. Ashraf Dahood, who is the President and CEO of Altio Star. So what I would like to start with is an opening comment from every panelist, maybe on 2-3 minutes, explain that how you see 5G is going to change the world, and explain that, if you will, please, with one specific killer application, whether it's in healthcare or media entertainment or transportation or government services or education or journalism, sports, whatever you feel appropriate. So let's start with 1 or 2 minute opening comment with every panelist. So I suggest Mr. Kishore Babu to start the conversation.
Thank you very much, Mehek. Hope my speech is clear to you all. Thank you very much.
We can hear you.
So very good evening and good morning to all the dignitaries, friends from industry, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm very excited to be part of this discussion and eager to learn from you. I should say that. We acknowledge the importance of this USIBC platform and especially COAI, who have been at the core of this digital journey in India. Both the countries share a strong culture of democratization of information and free exchange of ideas and, I should say, capacity building. And you all know India has a thriving digital ecosystem enabled by the private sector in network, devices, services, and platforms. And significant contribution has come from each one of you. I should say each one of you has significantly contributed in this journey. And there has been a lot of international collaboration in positioning India as one of the most affordable digital services market, as well as one of the highest consuming digital data markets. Thanks to every one of you. When it comes to 5G, when that triggers curiosity from the policymaker to the common user to the industry member, because now with 4G with a lot of mobile applications, because 4G and mobile have become, I should say, the everyday or every hourly need for every one of us. So the curiosity for everyone is that what 5G is going to be different, how it is going to alter my current challenges, or how it is going to enhance my productivity. These are some of the curious questions for everybody and every one of us. So this is one thing what, there's an opportunity for every one of us to build a kind of awareness as well as develop usage cases with a strong collaboration between the countries and industries and academia. And if you all remember this G20 meeting where the top leaders between the countries, there has been a kind of great admiration and understanding of aspirations and as well as opportunity to build technology collaboration in 5G. This is perhaps where we have a great lead and mandate to take it forward at all levels, industry, government, and again I say academia. And I'm happy to hear from the dignitaries remarks earlier that US has got a significant thriving ecosystem of 5G technology companies who are willing to collaborate, who are willing to contribute and enrich the 5G ecosystem. And here I also want to add, as you all know, and you might be seeing in media and news, India has got now a thriving ecosystem of SMEs and startups, maybe running in thousands in core technologies, starting from chipsets and to the digital devices as well as digital products. So they all look forward a kind of working together with every segment of the US industry and academia as well as society for the opportunity as well as for collaboration, what they can learn and how you can mentor them in taking forward in this digital journey. And of course, there are many important areas which you already mentioned, like spectrum management, usage case development, intersectoral collaboration, and most importantly, creating an SC policy environment, how we can roll out 5G services in the country at the quickest and affordable manner. This is one of the top of the agenda. And of course, bridging digital divide, as you might have seen the leadership announcement during Independence Day, that how do we connect all the villages? This is one of the top priority areas for India and of course, in the digital journey, which we can have together. With this, I'm eager to hear more from you. Thank you very much, Mihir.
Thank you, Mr. Babu. Undersecretary Kalba, I would like to hear from you that how you see 5G changing the world and perhaps an example of a killer application.
Thank you, Mihir. Thanks for asking that important question. When I was having a similar question for me, in the initial days of internet, what is going to be a killer application for internet after email or, file transfer? I realized that mobile applications have become the killer application, made internet as, I should say, every minute need for all of us. Considering the huge geographies of the country in India, akin to US, and as well as diverse cultures and, diverse languages, and as well as large health needs across the country, to service health workers as well as, the billion of population. I feel health application as well as the educational applications. And of course, entertainment is always, is a popular, inkling in the country. I feel these three are going to make enormous difference for, industry as well as for the public perspective.
Very nice. Thank you so much. Undersecretary Kalba, I would like to hear from you about your opening comments on 5G and application. If you are...
Yeah, that's a great question. At the Department of Commerce, we look across the entire global economy, so it's really hard for us to identify one killer application. I think we look at the capabilities of fifth-generation networks and see them opening new opportunities across many different areas. And some, of course, we can anticipate, and many others will develop as innovators learn how to exploit the new capabilities. So similarly as with 4G, 5G is going to provide us a platform for many new applications and solutions. So we're going to look at improved communications capabilities, and they'll facilitate globalization of technology in the broader digital economy. So I see 5G as being the next phase of expanding increased broadband access and connectivity across the entire global economy, and it's going to grow opportunities in business and personal connections. And the greatest impact may be opening a new wave of innovation across all vertical industries. So as our businesses and innovators come together, we anticipate many new opportunities.
Okay. No, very nice. Excellent. Mr. Durga Malari, you are in the middle of 5G. You actually lead the 5G at Qualcomm. I would love to hear your comment on how 5G is going to change the world.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me? Or
yes.
Seem to be. You can hear me. Okay, good. Mm-hmm. All right. So first of all, thanks everyone for this opportunity. I want to give like a perspective of where things are with 5G in general. And whenever we talk in terms of the killer application that you mentioned, I'd like to take both a midterm view and a long-term view. A long-term view tends to be very bullish, but midterm view is far more practical. So I'd like to actually bear upon that part. We are in year 2 of 5G deployments globally. What started off in the US and China, Korea, Japan, Australia, and Europe. Today we see parts of Middle East, Latin America, and then in India now plans coming up for 5G as well. And as one would expect for a technology of this scale, we have very lofty ambitions but we also made sure from a technology standpoint that this is a forward compatible standard. 5 years from now, we shouldn't look back and say we didn't do the right things and therefore there is this new application. We wish we had done something else different. So we're also being very disciplined about this. But a few of us have been in the industry for a long time, so there are lessons learned in that process. I'm very happy to see the way things are actually progressing. Now, there are two aspects that I would actually like to touch upon. So let's talk of where is the real action with 5G today and what is that midterm killer application that I was referring to. Today, smartphones have taken on the main scale of 5G deployment. As one would naturally expect, it also actually brings the right economies of scale because the entire ecosystem, infrastructure, devices, chipsets, and so on, they come up at the right scale. So that's good. Now, as we go into the midterm, what we are beginning to see is new applications beyond smartphones are already coming into the market with deployments coming up. First of all, right here for us in the US and then in other parts of the world as well. One of them is the usage of 5G, especially 5G millimeter wave, for fixed wireless access, bridging the digital divide. I'll give you an extreme example of this. Very recently, one would think that fixed wireless access and gigabit speeds are usually associated with dense urban and suburban areas. But we just recently showcased what can be done in rural areas. In rural Wisconsin, for instance, right in the midst of cornfields and soybean fields, we actually managed to illustrate how you can get to 100 plus megabits per second, very high data rates at a 5-kilometer distance from the nearest cell site. Usually in rural areas, you don't have a dense network, and that's the reason why the data rates are not very high. But with this, if we have those sorts of hundreds of megabits per second and then eventually reaching to gigabit speeds in rural areas, it actually can transform a large part of the country in a different way. You can now start thinking in terms of distance education. You can actually start thinking about making meaningful contributions to the local industry in the rural areas as well. So very excited about that, fixed wireless and Gen. As I said, it's a midterm view. That is something as a first step. Mm-hmm. The slightly longer term view, and it's actually probably nearing the midterm view at this point, that how we can take 5G and transform it from a consumer-centric technology into an operational technology. You start using 5G wireless for a large number of new vertical industries which have never dealt with cellular before. Here, I'll give you an example of a manufacturing plant where one could start thinking in terms of improving the operational efficiency significantly by having wireless connectivity to a large number of areas in that. By the way, today it's all wireline based, especially when you go into high precision manufacturing. If you make it into wireless, it actually makes the operational efficiency better. You can do the replanning of the floor in a more seamless manner, collect data across all the entities and network, do localized processing and so on. And that's no longer just a dream. As Qualcomm, we have been heavily involved in some of these discussions itself. I'm bullish that if you were to focus and be disciplined about the way we go into this midterm and long-term view, I think we can accomplish the true vision of what 5G is intended.
Excellent. No, that's great. I would like to now ask Mr. Badri Gomatam. He is with STL and he deals with 5G from the technical perspective, and he is a photonics expert. To hear from him that he has seen a gamut of things come and go, would love to hear his view on how 5G will change the world.
Thank you, Mihir, and thanks for the extending the invitation to us. This is my first time in this panel, and appreciate the opportunity. It's my pleasure to meet the Secretary and the Director General with DOT and the Lieutenant General Kocher. Just a couple of things, just to set the context. I have two perspectives. One is what is at least in the context of India, what could we expect as a secondary benefit of the infrastructure creation that's about to happen, right? In places like India, as you deploy the 5G infrastructure, there's a great opportunity to solve a fundamental challenge that is in distribution, right? A distribution of produce, distribution of agriculture, and this is so-called last mile problem. As we deploy the infrastructure for 5G, we have the opportunity to build waterways, roadways, or leverage all of that available infrastructure need creation in a very cost-efficient way. Now, having done that from a technology perspective, what you get for that is this is something that Durga just pointed out, and some of the other speakers also pointed out, is the revolution that you should be able to foresee in access to education. I think this is, in terms of a killer application, the number of technologies with the densification, with the deployment of small cells, with the deployment of fixed wireless access, these two places where a country like India requires some, let's say, changes in the ecosystem, we should be able to expect that fairly confidently that it is going to change the game in terms of bringing together ways to bridge the gap between farmers who have no access to the distribution channels, technology companies who need connectivity to enable that access, and then bring sort of a change in the way you can expect connectivity to ultimately trickle down to the lower sections of the economy. That is something I look forward to as how this is going to change in the coming years.
Very good, thank you. I would ask now Mr. Ashraf Dahoud, who is President and CEO of Altio Star, which company is involved in a lot of infrastructure aspects of 5G, to give some comment, opening remark on how you see the 5G is going to change the world.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks for the panelists, and thank you for the audience. Clearly, I mean, when Altio Star got started, we were sort of the only company in the world pushing open RAN. And it has been a very challenging journey, but at the same time, very satisfying. If you look at just a historical perspective, in 2000, the world moved from essentially all voice network to voice and data networks. Now the revolution that we are going through is that data is not just data. Data has become ubiquitous, and the network has to adapt not only to the data traffic, but also what the user application is. And the network, instead of being hardware-centric, has to become more intelligent, has to become very software-centric. And in order to become software-centric and allow the network to be able to support variety of applications that require different bandwidth, different latency requirements, and being able to adapt and be able to provide value-added applications as a service. We have to get away from the current model of deployment, which is custom software on custom hardware, what we call the mainframe model. We have to get to the web scale model. And as we get to the web scale model, where it is open software running on COT hardware with open interfaces. When you do that, you dramatically multiply the number of participants who can provide solution into that marketplace. Very much like what has happened in the handset world. Today, there are so many application developers who are providing variety of applications for the handset that allows us as a consumer to use the handset in far more ways than just talking on the voice or getting access to our email or just getting web access. So similar transformation is going to happen in the 5G world with hyperconnectivity, high bandwidth, with tremendous amount of software that will add intelligence and is going to touch all aspects of our lives. and impact is going to be multi-level. To give you an example, today in the mobile space, the velocity of innovation is driven by 2 or 3 companies. But we are going to Open RAN, bringing in the expertise wherever it is globally available, whether it's silicon expertise, hardware expertise, software expertise. We have now multiplied the number of participants who are contributing to 5G development, going from the 3 players to dozens of players. They're bringing in silicon expertise, software expertise, virtualization expertise, automation, security. And in 5G, as we get hyper connectivity with a lot of devices connected, security becomes very critical. And only way you can secure a network is to make sure that all the interfaces are open, visible to the operator, and are secure. And I think that's the sort of transformation is happening, and that will unfold throughout the world, and it will also allow various countries to be able to participate in their own local market. And we are fortunate that we have been able to deploy the very first 5G open networks around the world, starting in Japan with Rakuten, with Airtel in India, pretty soon with Dish in the United States, and Telefonica in UK, Germany, Spain, and Brazil. So I think this transformation has started, the revolution has started, and it's very exciting that over the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to dramatically change our lives. The one killer application that I believe is very much within our grasp and will definitely unfold over the next few years is intelligent transformation. As we get vehicles to become intelligent, as we get trucks, buses, trains become more intelligent, as we collect the traffic conditions around in the road system with sensors and be able to control the movement of traffic, we can make them more energy efficient. And the biggest challenge that we face in the world today is the effect of human beings on the climate. And how do we control that? I'm sure we all are facing it all over the world, whether it is fire, whether it is storm. And 5G has the potential that with the ubiquitous connectivity, with intelligent network, that we can indeed make our transportation a lot more energy efficient and reduce our heat footprint and improve the climate in the world. Thank you, man.
No, that is excellent. So since all these devices, as you mentioned, intelligent transportation, all the autonomous vehicles, they're all going to be connected to each other in a way, or with the infrastructure. So that means the way they communicate, the standard is going to be very important. What standards are there? So there is a battle brewing on standards in 5G in terms of traditional companies, proprietary standards, as well as you mentioned, Open RAN standard. US and India can play a joint role in shaping the global standard, right? Which may be beneficial to some extent to their own local industries. Like for India, it could be software industry. For US, it could be technology development and licensing industry. So, Mr. Dahod, what is the scenario on the standard front, and what are the opportunities for US and India to jointly play together in order to shape the global standards?
So let me first answer the question of collaboration between India and US.
Sure.
Altostar is a perfect example of the collaboration that's going on between US and India. We are a US-based company. We have developers and designers in the US. All our software is developed in India. We have close to 500 engineers working in India developing 5G software. So collaboration between India and US is already happening. And and we are also very actively involved in localizing some of the production of the hardware in India. As you all know, the biggest cost item is the radio. And we are actively involved in having reference design for the radios and getting them manufactured in India. So there is localization that can happen in India. And this localization is a joint collaboration between US and India. US design that we are bringing to India and getting them manufactured in India. As far as standards are concerned, I agree with you that if you look at the current standard bodies, they are all controlled by the incumbents. What we are trying to do is something that's a force that goes against the incumbents. Go back a few years and think about what was the reaction of the mainframe suppliers and the mini computer suppliers when web scale technologies came in. The only way we can break the stranglehold of the current suppliers is to have open standards. So we have created an Open RAN Alliance. We started off with a handful of us. Now it is dozens of companies around the world. It includes all the major manufacturers, silicon suppliers, web scale technology developers, and almost all the tier 1 operators around the world who have become part of this alliance. And we are absolutely determined to look at every interface and make it open. We are contributing our own expertise, our own technology to make sure that we can not only have open standards where our software can work with other hardware manufacturers, but also working with collaboratively with companies who could be viewed as our competitors, whether it's Navinair or Parallel Wireless or incumbents like Nokia who are willing to participate in the Open RAN Alliance and making every interface open. And if there is any standard that is not available today, we are willing to design it, formulate it, document it, and make it available to the industry so that anybody can play with it. So I think the only way we can make this happen is to have the openness, have the willingness to contribute. And I think once the standards are open, it allows many, many players to participate in it. Silicon suppliers, software developers, and silicon can be developed anywhere in the world. And I think the biggest advantage I see that India has, it can provide us a low-cost source of manufacturing radios. At the same time, it has software engineers who can contribute to not only the fundamental software required for 5G technology, but also machine learning and artificial intelligence to support different applications that a 5G infrastructure has to support.
So now, since you brought up the infrastructure aspect, so let's turn our focus on infrastructure for 5G. Companies need to think about new architecture because now you have Wi-Fi integrated with cellular network because currently we have two separate networks, but they are all going to be one network under 5G. So companies have to deploy new architecture. You have to think about infrastructure in terms of removing redundancy of parallel network. Countries will also have to think about how can we bring this kind of bandwidth, this 5G network to rural areas, remote areas, to every person. Earlier we have talked about, Mr. Melody had talked about digital divide, an example in Wisconsin. So what are the key considerations in building infrastructure for 5G? So, Mr. Badri Gomatam, you have been involved in a lot of infrastructure aspects of your company. I would love to hear your view on what are the things we need to look into for building infrastructure for 5G, especially when you have small cell and other issues required to create a separate infrastructure from current 4G infrastructure. At the same time, how U.S. and India can help each other build world-class infrastructure.
Absolutely. That's a great question, Madhu. So, when you look at infrastructure, the word that people immediately associate with that word is cost, right? And I think what is shaping up with companies like ourselves in our recent experience in bringing world-class infrastructure deployment in India, because we are, as STL, a completely Indian organization. And we've been working very, very hard with both the government of India as well as the private sector telecommunications operators and various state entities in bringing extremely scalable, cost-efficient methods to roll up the required infrastructure. And that can be put together into the word infrastructure. I think you can parse it in two ways. One, you can say, okay, look, there is network architecture. There is a 5G that's coming along. There is a sort of a rip and replace idea, or gradually upgrade using software. I think the upgrading using software is the exciting part that Ashraf has pointed out. As we grow in the Open RAN infrastructure deployment, we have a tremendous opportunity to perform software-led upgrades on some fixed assets and fixed infrastructure. Right? And I think that's a great story that is that's going to come together just from the open interfaces and the standardization. And that's a great place that the US and India are already working together, as Ashraf pointed out. And there's a lot to learn from each other over there. The second part that is comes to people's mind is, how are you going to build this out? How long does it take? What do you need to get concrete and towers and fiber and trenches and everything put together? And this is something that requires attention, because even if you look at places like the United States in rural sectors, getting fiber backhaul over there is as difficult as maybe getting fiber to rural India as well, right? And fortunately, the problem is solvable. It is something that we have demonstrated time and again in many regions across India, especially. And now we're looking to figure out how we take some of the expertise that we've built up in bringing the cost effectiveness of this infrastructure down in terms of the deployment and the design. And having open interfaces actually helps understand how to optimally place the infrastructure, reduce your operational costs, contribute to your capital costs on day one by proper planning, and some of the new exciting technologies that are coming up in a more mundane context, using machine learning and some of the technologies that are built into the ideas behind machine learning. Help us numerically optimize the amount of infrastructure that is going to be required, or make a best case effort to spend the optimal amount of money on day one. Right? All this actually translates down the road into rolling out this infrastructure as fast as possible. I mean, one of the key challenges that we have faced and we are solving actively is the percentage of, let's say, towers and cell sites or small cells that require fiber backhaul. In India, it is around 15 to 20% and growing, obviously. And in other developed economies, it is closer to 75-80%, and probably needs to grow significantly if the vision that Durga just pointed out on fixed wireless access has to come, small cell densification has to come, the cloud has to move to the edge or further deeper into the edge. This will require a lot of thinking and optimization on the distribution of power, the distribution of optical fiber, and then keeping that those capital costs at a very, very controlled and effective manner. And these are some of the areas I think India has become good at in the last, let's say, 5 years. And we believe that this is a place that there's something we could figure out a very interesting way to work between the U.S. and India, something to offer from our experience so far.
No, that's excellent. The third big issue in 5G is security. It's a big elephant in the room. There's a lot of political aspect going on the security aspect. And the security here, I'm talking about both at the national level as well as the network security issues, cyber security, which companies would be really worried about. Mr. Maladi talked about new applications beyond smartphone applications that are coming out. He talked about moving from consumer tech to operational tech, which means a lot of mission critical, very important applications will be running on 5G network. And when you have that, and when you have 5G infrastructure dominated by equipment and the software from foreign companies, of course, there is a critical national interest issues or security issues that comes up in the mind of countries, as well as companies, which may be concerned about espionage and other things. So I would like to ask Mr. Melady, given his great conversation with all kinds of industries and all kinds of companies and the government in the area of deploying 5G, tell us a little bit more about what are the major security issues and how companies and countries can manage those, specifically how India and US can also prepare themselves or come together to prepare themselves for this issue. I know Qualcomm has announced something with Geo just a day before or something like that. So, Mr. Melady, I would love to hear your points on this.
Thanks. This is an important topic, and I want to make sure that this is addressed in the right way. I mean, keeping the geopolitics part of it aside, but on the technology side and also from an operational standpoint, what it really means for us. First of all, when you kind of take a look at from a pure technology, the march from 3G, 4G to 5G has had its own innovation in terms of the security as described in 3GPP standards, for example. So typically it is done in the context of, ciphering an integrity check, in user plane for sure, and gradually going into control plane as well. So from a pure raw technology standpoint, the security has gradually been improving across both the networks and devices. So that's a check, in my opinion. That's not the main problem as it is perceived right now, but that is actually a check from that perspective. The real question then is, okay, if they're going to be using 5G truly, as I mentioned earlier, as an operational technology, it really goes into all sorts of vertical industries where some of these are extremely sensitive, some of them in a different dimension. You might want to be far more secure in its own way. So how do you actually make sure that happens? And I want to actually start perhaps from the most recent announcement that we made a couple of days back. Qualcomm has historically been providing our solutions into the infrastructure domain. Back in the 3G days, actually, we were providing a full-blown chipset solution, including the software powering some of the 3G networks. In 4G, we focused a lot more on small cells. And in 5G, our small cells today, based upon Qualcomm's chipset solutions, are already deployed commercially with a leading operator in Japan, and some of the small cells are now being used in the US with our millimeter-based solutions. What we did is we have expanded our role in this space and providing a complete turnkey modem RF solution from baseband to antennas. This is the key radio aspects. This is the core radio aspects of 5G at the physical layer. But we provide the solutions. The announcement that we made extended it all the way to macro cells. Think of massive MIMO, high capacity, high performance, and high power networks. So this is a complete gamut of solutions. Well, what does this really mean in the context of security? So now if you think about it, I want to come back to a point that was made earlier. Both, we talked about devices, new kinds of devices coming in and new kinds of use cases coming in, but there is an equally important initiative that has started in the network domain, and that is how do we go from today's monolithic architecture of a network? So one could argue that you have like one single entity and that could be a single point of failure in some sense in the entire network, to a more disaggregated RAN, a more distributed network. One school of thought is that when you have this sort of disaggregated RAN, you're not necessarily beholden to a single choke point in the network. There are other redundancies in the network with which you can enhance security. That's one school of thought. The other school of thought is that, well, maybe it gets a little more complex. But on the other hand, that is perhaps a place where these open interfaces between different elements of the disaggregated RAN also play a key role. So our role, as we announced it 2 days back, is our 5G modem RF solutions or RAN platforms enable a new kind of an infrastructure 2.0 that allows for software to actually be written on top of third-party hardware. And this goes all the way from small cells to macro cells. This means anyone can build different kinds of software and services. And with this disaggregated RAN architecture, you end up with a combination of radios, perhaps from one vendor / chipset vendor, the protocol stack and elements of the core from one vendor, and perhaps the rest of the stack and any other services that come in from a completely different vendor. So you have like a mix and match. You don't like to have like 50 entities, but at the same time, it's a more diverse ecosystem and allows for, once again, a scalable network that is absolutely critical as it goes into these different things. From a security standpoint, I'll give a couple of concrete examples of what it might be. So we talked about a manufacturing plant. So imagine that you have a situation wherein you want to make sure that the densification is done in the right way in the industrial environment, but at the same time, you want to keep some of the fully secure elements, depending upon how you treat them, maybe somewhere offsite, somewhere else, completely separate. So you could have the radio access network inside the premise and the core and the rest of the network are in different sites altogether, easily possible using disaggregated RAN in this way. You could have completely different people doing this as well. So that's the promise of what can be done with this sort of a disaggregated RAN when you think about it from a security standpoint. Now, it is still a journey at this point. I want to be very cautious about it by saying that we have started that journey. We got a ringing endorsement from a large number of global mobile operators from the US, from Japan, from Europe, Korea, and from India as well. You mentioned Reliance was a part of that announcement as well, and we had a separate announcement with them. But we are very excited about that part. So there is this transformation that's occurring that needs to occur in the network. We have started the journey, and there are lots of activities associated with this. Time will tell as to exactly when the transformation will occur. We believe it is inevitable, but the exact precise timing of this depends upon how the key stakeholders come together and actually make this happen. So that's one viewpoint of how we can improve the overall network security.
Certainly, that's very, very helpful. We heard a lot of different perspective on this. What I would like to, as we learn from all this perspective, is that 5G is going to be beyond company level. It's actually going to be at the government level, at the nation level, at the industry level, at the company level, as well as even academic institutions will be playing significant role in 5G technology, as well as impact of that technology on society. So I would like to ask Mr. Undersecretary Kalba that, what are the specific initiatives that you can think of that U.S. and India can take at the government level or at the industry level, at the company level, even at the academic level? And I would also ask Mr. Babu the same question after you from the Indian perspective.
Sure, that's a great question. And, as you know, we have several ongoing dialogues between the governments of the U.S. and India, including the U.S.-India ICT Working Group, which is led by our State Department, and the U.S.-India Commercial Dialogue, which is led by Commerce. And I've had the pleasure of being participants in that, both, from the government side and the private sector side at different points in my career. And, we appreciate the advice and input we receive also from the U.S.-India CEO Forum, which is another important venue. And these mechanisms have been great facilitators for discussions in key policy areas and topics of mutual interest concerning ICT issues. So we fully support developing these work streams and new work streams and lines of efforts in these existing dialogues to strengthen collaboration in the digital space. And as part of our national strategy to secure 5G, the U.S. has a number of initiatives and programs under development to promote closer collaboration among allies and like-minded countries in areas of R&D, joint testing and demonstration of emerging technologies, and to facilitate increased cooperation amongst our academic and research institutions. So once we have these initiatives scaled, I hope Indian government, academic, and private sector institutions will consider participating in those. For company-level initiatives, we're fully supportive of our private sector building partnerships with trusted technology companies. A key function of the Department of Commerce is to facilitate making those connections as appropriate. So we're happy to help promote those opportunities where available, and our door is open.
initiatives and collaboration and all those interesting aspects that we can take forward. Can you suggest some initiatives specific that we can start looking into, and perhaps government and private sector can come together in some of those initiatives? Mr. Babu, you are on mute.
Thank you very much, Mehir. And especially when you look at India-US strategic partnership, as Under Secretary Greg mentioned about existing mechanisms and how successful, how fruitful, and how productive they have been contributing, we all know. That's the reason, as I mentioned, the collaboration is at the core of this research journey. But there are few areas where I thought there's a real opportunity where we can work together and, build more possibilities to make them really, a special 5G scenario. If you look at, I see this 5G is like a, Rubik cube with, multiple, cross points as well as multiple opportunities. See, every cross point is a new dimension which can open up another new opportunity. And discovering, making these special capabilities of 5G leading to kind of multiple clear applications or usage cases is something, which needs to be worked upon to create the, demand for enabling, larger investments. We all know that 5G investment is a, big area for operators, across the globe. So there's a need to create what could be the kind of demand, different areas. As, of course, you all mentioned about different areas which could be of interest, socio-economic perspective. But for operators to invest money, considering especially the current COVID times, they really need to work more about, usage case labs as well as usage case applications. How do we create, that kind of working partnership between government institutions and industry? There could be a special program between India and US at government level, industry level, academia level, especially to drive about the usage case labs and applications. That could be one special initiative which we can look at. And second thing, what I also feel is that, as Ashraf Dahood rightly mentioned, that already there is an existing collaboration between India and US at industry level. And as I also mentioned, there's a lot of aspirations as well as technological capabilities we see from the Indian industry members. So is there any way where this could be more channelized productively with the right kind of partnership and mentoring with US industry could be an area which maybe on US IBC platform we can experiment and innovate and drive further. And in fact, spectrum management and spectrum studies is third important area, which I feel a lot of collaboration is possible between all the stakeholders. Let me specifically thank and acknowledge Mr. Rajan Vagadia's team and his personal intervention, and of course right support from Durga Maladi and headquarters team from Qualcomm, how they have been consistently supporting in government policy making with the right inputs on the spectrum management and spectrum coexistence studies. But here still what I further see is that stakeholders of spectrum are unique from country to country. Different needs could be there in different countries. So there's an opportunity for different stakeholders to conduct a kind of coexistence studies to make spectrum pre-available as we grow from G to G. Is one of the important areas where both countries as well as industry can work together to conduct something called country-specific coexistence studies to make certain things as pre-planned and made available as spectrum as a resource to be available for the 5G and next generation technologies. And of course, and as Durga mentioned and the Secretary mentioned, that learning from US, especially for the 5G benefits what they got because they are already in advanced stage in rolling out, and what kind of regulatory facilitation is really needed to make applications to roll out into real commercial use. These are some of the areas apart from security and as well as economic benefits which we may like to learn more from US and as well as the US operators to help us create the right ecosystem and the policy environment to drive the 5G as a thriving new era digital technology for all of us. That is from my side. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Mr. Babu. Now that you mentioned Rajan Bagadia, he is also on a speaker right now, connected with us. Now, I wonder whether he can hear us, although he is not part of the panel. But I would like to hear, because he is based in Mumbai and he leads 5G at Qualcomm. So I would like to hear if he has a couple of comments before we close this panel. Rajan? Can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me, Mihir?
Yes, I can hear you, Rajan, now. Please
okay, thank you. Thanks for the
I'd love to hear your point on, all this discussion that we have.
No, actually, I'll leave it for the defer to the panel. I think the panel is an awesome panel here, and it's always good to hear this cross-sectional industry views. It's a forum which has brought out some important points. These sort of interactions help both sides, the industry, the government. We have Mr. Kishore Babu giving his views, and actually this is very helpful for even the government to get inputs, the industry to get inputs, the ecosystem to get inputs. So I'm glad these conversations are happening, these platforms are there, and we are seeing in the previous sessions which we had on the same forum, we had a very interesting conversation with Mr. Ajit Pai. Likewise, this time around we have such important panelists both from the government of India and US. These forums are very helpful. That's all I can tell, and there's a lot of other discussions did happen on the panel. So thank you. Thanks, Mihir.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. We are running short on time. We have a lot of interesting things. This area is very interesting, a lot of issues in there. I wanted to continue. There are a few questions from also from audience participants. I would have loved to take that up. Unfortunately, we are running short on time. We are already over time significantly. But thank you for all the panelists for joining and sharing your thoughts and ideas, and in order to build a great relationship between India and U.S. In this very important technology, which is going to be the backbone of emerging technologies that are going to come in future. So with that, I hand over to Jay to take the proceedings forward. Jay?
Great. Thank you, sir. We would ask that Nishit Desai, if you can come off your microphone, please. We're very pleased at this time to launch a report that Nishit Desai and Associates has developed. It's a really nice primer, and we're happy to have Nishit Desai here to release. Or if you could just say a quick word, and then we will do the formal launch, and then we'll do our closing remarks.
No, thank you very much for inviting me. I made a blunder today. It's a mistake. I went out for routine walk in missing the time of the webinar, and I didn't realize, and I left my phone home. So I was looking at 5G. The next generation will be device-less communication. If it could have been in the air, I would have perhaps come back very fast, but I completely missed out. I'm sure that will be the new innovation. And I am really delighted that taken up this subject, and the number of issues which has been, I think, discussed during this celebrated panel that we have. I'm grateful to you, to USIBC and all. Thank you very much, Mihir. I don't want to take too much time at this point in time, but India is a great lab for social innovation, and I'm sure that 5G will endeavor to bring out a lot more social innovations from India. And Silicon Valley and US is a hub for technological revolution or evolution and innovations. India is a good hub for social, and how can we use those ones? That would be my philosophical take on the subject. And as you know, we are research-based law firm, spending 40% time on research, academics, and futuristic technology. And I'm delighted that Mihir, who is my close friend, we have worked for almost 30 years together, and leads our technology team from Silicon Valley, PhD in artificial intelligence. So, he's the right person to talk and write on the subject, and I'm sure we'll create a better ecosystem and environment for entry of 5G into this world. And as I mentioned, hopefully we'll have more device-free time to come. And thank you so much for allowing us to present this report. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll do the official launch, Nabil, and then we'll put the link in the chat box.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, this actually concludes, I think, a really fascinating discussion, not only of 5G, but it concludes our U.S.-India West Coast Digital Week. I want to thank a number of our partners, but I mostly want to thank our participants and members. We really appreciate you joining to hear us discuss this critical issue of U.S.-India engagement around the digital sector. What we heard this week, and it certainly ties into this 5G conversation, is that the U.S.-India relationship has a very strong digital component. And it's a strong, large, financially impactful, but also growing, and allows both countries to benefit in the development of technology, not only for our own countries and each other, but it positions the two countries well internationally. It attracts investment, creates jobs, promotes exports, not only in the bilateral relationship, but internationally. This week we talked about quantum technologies, and one of the things we said is we should be talking about quantum like we're talking about 5G today. It's a foundational technology, has tremendous applications, has a tremendous future, and the U.S. and India are uniquely positioned to discuss these issues to create a strategic digital partnership that benefits both countries, both peoples, and the larger world. With that, we conclude today's event. We conclude our week of webinars, and some final notes. I really want to thank our partners, the Cellular Operators Association of India and the Indian Mobile Congress. They're wonderful partners. They've been tremendous in developing this 5G conversation. We are going to continue working with them to have additional 5G discussions at Indian Mobile Congress in December and into the new year, where we look to include conversations of what the U.S. Department of Defense and the Indian military are also looking about 5G in terms of advanced communications and those sorts of things. So look out for future invitations and future events to continue this conversation forward. I also want to thank a couple of our members that have been supporting us in these efforts for a long time now, Qualcomm, VMware, HCL, and many others. And so lastly, I want to thank our guests today, our government participants, our industry speakers, and of course, most importantly, you, our audience, for listening to this and then hopefully taking away learnings as we move forward to promote the U.S.-India Strategic Digital Partnership. With that, I ask everybody on both sides and globally, please stay safe, be well, and have a good evening and a good afternoon here in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Hello.